the way in which I view spaces, I view people, and I was quite an introvert as a kid. I was quite recluse. I think I had like a bubble childhood compared to like most of my peers. So I looked at space as though, like, how can I engage with you in the way that I struggle to engage with people?
So what was their kind of initial reaction from architectural spaces when you first approached them with this kind of spiritual and emotional proposition?
I think we're going back to 2017, right? And I'm this young, boisterous, audacious poet who's actually walking into offices or knocking on doors and be like, hey, I want to do a poet in residence. Waking up, going in 5 to 6 days a week. Like, I just knew this wasn't for me. Like, I was good at academia to the point where I could learn how to do something really well. But my passion wasn't designing buildings. My passion was learning how to express myself or articulate something which would connect with you. And I only learned that because I hated myself enough to write myself out of my mindset. So every one of my poems was like a medicinal pill.
So how do you approach buildings emotionally as a poet, not just as an observer?
So yeah, like, double back into the point I made earlier, I think looking at buildings in the way that I look at people. I was bullied quite a lot in school, and I didn't really find the mechanisms internally to help me deal with it. I had to like outsource those, like going to my parents and figuring out how I can come back to school. And I think when you do things that way, you become very sensitive to people's expressions, their micro expressions, the things they do in spaces, their body posture, their tonality. And I started to read people like books. Like,
Hey Black Circle family, and welcome to another episode. And today I am so excited to be talking to LionHeart. Welcome.
thank you for having me.
And I don't even know where to begin with this, because you are a multidisciplinary artist, poet, visionary director, former BBC Radio London presenter. But on top of that, and there's such a broad range of work that you have, it's associate artist at the Royal Albert Hall, artist in residence at 180 Strand, and it goes on. And that's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
it really is.
It is. There's a lot more. There's a lot more.
There's a lot more, and we will dig into all of that. But I think I always like to start at the beginning. So kind of let's talk about the origins, really. So kind of you grew up in Kentish Town, but your architectural lineage runs through Grenada.
Yeah.
So how did the dual context shape your view of space and identity?
It's so interesting. Like, for me, I think the way in which I view spaces, I view people, and I was quite an introvert as a kid. I was quite recluse. I think I had like a bubble childhood compared to like most of my peers. So I looked at space as though, like, how can I engage with you in the way that I struggle to engage with people? So I'm analyzing a space, thinking, all right, cool. Am I welcomed here? Like, is the ceiling height enough for me to feel like I can breathe better? Like, all these little, I could touch the ceiling in my old house and it felt so claustrophobic. Like that, what's it, goldfish syndrome?
Right.
Where they only grow to the size of the tank, or the bowl. So I felt like that growing up. And I think being a Grenadian, we're kind of small islanders. We are small islanders, you know what I mean? Kind of trying to big up my chest a bit, like, we're small islanders.
I understand.
You know what I mean? Are you a Louis?
I am, yes.
And I think, that proximity to intimate spaces didn't help my confidence. And learning that, I thought, all right, cool. As the years progressed, my relationship to Grenada was, again, small islanders. We're quite insular. Some of us are quite expansive. There are a lot of Grenadians doing some big things. But at that young age, it was quite confining mentally for me. And, when it came to secrets in the Caribbean, everything stays in the household. So that kind of like psychodynamic of like staying inside, not sharing, became my relationship with space until spaces brought me out of that mindset. And I was like, all right, cool. There's things here that are happening in architectural dynamics that are an enabler for the person I want to be. So that's the duality between Grenada, intimate spaces, and my understanding of how to express myself outside of that.
I know that your grandfather and your father were both architects as well. Yeah. So how did that have an impact on your journey?
Done your research. Pressure, man. You know what I mean? Pressure. Like, my dad is saying, all right, cool, if you don't do architecture, I'm kicking you out of the house. Wow. You know what I mean? He still denies it to this day. Like, will look at me barefaced and be like, I never told you that. But I had something to look up to. I was like a third generation potential architect. I stopped after my degree. But being an honorary fellow was definitely the thing that made him think, all right, he's gone his own way, but he still feels like I've made him proud to that degree. But I've always felt like I had to be something. My dad's this, my granddad is, my cousin's this. There was this pressure cooker of like, how are you going to evolve to be just as good or as great as your dad is and your granddad is? So yeah, that's what the architectural lineage contributed to me.
That pressure of continuing legacy, basically.
Being great, it doesn't help that my name is God's champion. Like growing up hearing that, it's like, you're God's champion, like figure it out. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's definitely a prerequisite, isn't it, of having such that lineage on your shoulders. And just to go back a little bit, because like you said, you studied in university for architecture. So what was that junction point for you where you was like, okay, I'm not going to go down this road. There's something else that's calling me.
We're going to get deep today, innit? We're going to get deep today. I had a real intimate relationship with myself because I didn't like myself a lot. I think some people in their formative years experience that. For me, it was quite deep, dark and depressive. Like my constant self-talk was disastrous, to say the least. It felt like a psychological terrorism, you know, against myself. So again, I'm a poet, so maybe I'm catastrophizing it a little bit. But I think in uni, waking up, going in 5 to 6 days a week, like I just knew this wasn't for me. Like I was good at academia to the point where I could learn how to do something really well. But my passion wasn't designing buildings. My passion was learning how to express myself or articulate something which would connect with you. And I only learned that because I hated myself enough to write myself out of my mindset. So every one of my poems was like a medicinal pill. I'm thinking, how do I use this to like myself at the end of the day? So every poem, my friend used to laugh at me and say like, bro, every time you end your poem, it's always a positive note. I'm like, because that's where I want to be. Like, I don't want to be in a negative space. So yeah, that was the junction for me. I was waking up, going to class, and I was writing poems. I was leaving class and going in to like the UEL view where you could see like the planes take off. And I was just writing poems about who I wanted to be in life. Yeah.
That's amazing. And what's the conversation like when you take this to your dad and you're like, this is what I want to do? What was that conversation?
If I could reenact this right now, this would go viral. Do you know what, man? Like telling your dad, who is, you know, very proud, alpha, humble soul, righteous man, but he's an Aries.
So is my dad.
Fire, like
yes.
Fire. And that being said, he was like, yo, as long as you got your degree, cool, you got a plan B, just do your thing. But he definitely wasn't happy. Probably took him like 8 or 9 years to get to that point of, okay, my son's doing this thing now. But yeah, it was a difficult one to have. I think he respected me as a man though because of it. It was like I was no longer this subservient young kid of his. It was like, all right, I'm making a stand. This is what I want to do. I know you kind of led me down this path, but this is the man that I want to be. And there was friction, but through that friction, I guess I gained his respect. Because every time like he would see me, he's like, he's doing his thing. You know what I mean? He's hustling.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good that you kind of came to an understanding and you grew into what you ultimately knew would be your purpose.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's a weird thing to say because sometimes you don't know. Like I could have just been a guy writing poems and didn't go anywhere. And now I'm, 14 years deep, figuring out how to make this my lifelong career rather than just for a great tenure.
Yeah. Forever creating, which is, I think, is a beautiful space to be in. That's something I aspire to want to.
What do you mean you're doing it right now?
I know that was to be forever creating, you know. I think some people might get a little bit stuck, like life takes over. I'm going to change gears just a little bit.
That was a nice segue.
So let's kind of touch on like you've been a poet in residence at leading firms like Grimshaw and Snohetta. Make sure I say that.
Snohetta, yeah.
Snohetta. Squire and Park.
I can't lie, you butchered it the second time as well. I can't lie, I'm sorry. Snohetta. Yeah. Bat.
So what was their kind of initial reaction from architectural spaces when you first approached them with this kind of spiritual and emotional proposition?
I think we're going back to 2017, right? And I'm this young, boisterous, audacious poet who's actually walking into offices or knocking on doors and be like, hey, I want to do a poet in residence. I think there was a lot of stereotypical responses to me, which didn't make me feel good. This is another thing we can probably tap into if you want. But I had to just keep on persevering because I saw the benefit to these firms by having me there and doing this work. The firms that you mentioned, like Grimshaw, Snohetta, Bijake Ingles Group, Invisalign messing me up. Like all of these practices were curious. The others had, I think, a a disposition or predilection saying this isn't for us, and why you see here doesn't look the part. You know, these are assumptions I'm making, but based on the relationship that was had at the time, I could be like, yeah, you don't think I'm supposed to be here. They came back though. They came back, yeah. But Grimshaw and these other firms, man, they were so curious and I think attentive to the value that I wanted to offer, because I wasn't charging at that time. It's just, hey, I want to do this work. I believe it's of value. I've done it once here and it was of clear value, and I just want to do it for you guys. And I think it took some people like a month, others took a week, others took maybe 3 months, but they kept on asking me, how do we make this work for us? And for me, that was the kind of the inquisitive attitude that's allowed me to flourish, because I've then taken those models and developed it every single time. So every time I do residency now, it steps up another notch because I had the experience to back it and give it like a different aggregate, you know?
And that's why I wanted to ask the question, because I'm imagining this young Black boy
100%.
approaching these firms.
Probably with my hoodie up as well. Can't lie. Not that that should make a difference, but clearly in 2017, it felt like it did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Before the whole kind of George Floyd movement and all of that, like it was still, and I hate kind of referring back to that point.
I know that's
the only
right. I know.
Do you know what I mean? But there was a turning, and I feel like with the momentum's lost again. I think we've gone back on the back foot again. But there was a specific turning at that point where we did have the attention. Yeah. So prior to that, it was still that very much of. That's why I wanted to ask. Like, you're approaching them and they're like, "Oh, hold on a minute, what's going on here?" But then there's something to be said about the ones that who could see the value.
You see, this is why I love architecture. I think we don't get a chance to speak about it in a wider forum. Architecture isn't just about the composition of spaces, all right? It's a result or expression of someone who's stretched their neuroplasticity to a certain point where they can problem solve and be open to anything that is going to arise. There are so many boundaries that we live in. Like, our grid system is crazy. New York is crazy, but we still figure out how to make creative, functioning, emotive buildings, right? So if that is a reflection of someone's mind, it shows you that they're pushing themselves to the limits. But there are other architectural bodies which are very happy with a traditional mindset, which doesn't stretch their psyche to then stretch the outcomes. So I wasn't surprised that I could walk into spaces and still feel that sense of like unspoken racism, right? Unspoken stereotypes, unspoken whatever, unconscious biases. Like, I could see that because some people aren't doing the work on themselves to then cross-pollinate into their career. That was a big TEDx speech, but yeah, just riffing off.
TEDx.
Yeah. You really did your research, innit? You really did your research.
I think it's important to bring up because I've had a guest on here who did a TEDx speech, and they just telling me about the preparation that went into it.
It's a lot, yeah.
So I think, let's kind of delve into that a little bit.
I mean, it kind of ties into what I just said about, you know, certain architectural practices being an expanse of your mind or a demonstration of how far your imagination can stretch. The TED talk that I did was called Beliefs Being Obstacles, right? And I just had this really deep focus on, if I change my mindset, there is no obstacles in front of me anymore. But whenever I want to do something, initially there's something in my head that tells me, no, it's going to hurt, it's going to be a problem. And I thought, all right, cool, what can I do to reorchestrate or recalibrate our minds, our beliefs, and our core values to open ourselves up to the world? And I think that's probably why I do poetry. You know, it's like I use this term quite a lot, but it's definitely an excavation, you know, in an emotional sense, in a spiritual sense, in a relationship sense, in an integral part of who I am and who I want to become. Because I can't just be okay with who I am today. I can be peaceful, but like, there's a war that I'm going to have to fight tomorrow. Yeah. So I want to be prepared, and poetry helps me prepare for those wars mentally.
I love that about, not being perfect, but you can be peaceful.
Yeah.
I really love that idea. I always go back to balance being one of like my life I've gone blank.
Your life goals, like
one of my life values.
So it's love.
One of
career, creative,
and just having that. I feel like if I'm in a place of balance, everything seems more manageable.
Okay, yeah.
And so having that kind of peace to align you and just bring you back when you're kind of in those crazy moments. I think peace and balance is so important. I think they're both intertwined.
Do you have like a tool that does that for you? Because poetry is that for me. As much as it can be arduous at times because you're figuring out how to do this thing right. Like, do you have your own, like, I don't know, like genesis or like ritual or something?
I think one of the main things, it would definitely be there's a few things. I think reading for me, prayer for me is pretty important.
Number one. Yeah.
Meditation, although I don't do it as often as I should. And then also just making sure that I'm kind of moving my body. So whether that's stretching or going to the gym, just anything that grounds me.
It's funny that we choose careers that aren't that grounded and balanced though, right?
Right. That's so true. Okay, we need to look into that. I don't know why, but...
Next podcast, season 2. Yeah.
So how do you approach buildings emotionally as a poet, not just as an observer?
So yeah, like double back into the point I made earlier, I think looking at buildings in the way that I look at people, I was bullied quite a lot in school, and I didn't really find the mechanisms internally to help me deal with it. I had to like outsource those, like going to my parents and figuring out how I can come back to school. And I think when you do things that way, you become very sensitive to people's expressions, their micro expressions, the things they do in spaces, their body posture, their tonality. And I started to read people like books. Like consciously or unconsciously, that became my survival mechanism in primary and secondary school. And I feel like now it's a superpower, which allows me to be a poet. But at that point, it was like, be safe. Like, that was my radar. It's like, what am I seeing right now that's allowing me to feel like I can exist here without worrying about a fearful outcome? So now when I look at spaces, I think I'm reading it with the same psychoanalytical frame or lens. It's like, what does this space teach me? And how can we change it to help other people feel good here? And that was like the basis of my whole work of architects. Like, how can we dissect an architect's approach to space to mitigate or ameliorate mental health? That was it. I wanted people to be in spaces like when you're with a loved one and you just feel, do you know what I mean? Like, I want spaces to do that. And I've probably had only 2 growing up. And one was the Barbican, which I've probably spoken about too many times in my life. But it gave me this visual acupuncture, man, that just always makes me feel good. Yeah.
And when you think of the future, and again, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit here, what would be a safe space that you would like to create for yourself moving forward, like in the future? What does that look like?
Are we talking like a physical space or mental space?
Both.
Making it very difficult for me now. Ooh, okay. I ain't going to ask you a question like that again. I think the physical space would be a view that smiles back at me. And that can be through, I guess, interior design. It could be the windows that frame the world outside. It could be a lot of things, but just the view that smiles back at me, like it's happy that I'm here, you know? I think mentally it's just being proud that I exist.
Just taking up space and being here and and doing what you do. I love that. Okay, so
this is gonna be therapy soon, isn't it? You're gonna have to change your title fully.
No, but it's beautiful. It's like I said before we kind of hopped on the mic, we were talking about, you know, vulnerability, and we have to have that, again, balance of the professional story and the vulnerable side and the human side of the story. So I'm here to explore all of it. We're going to go a little bit deeper now because we're going to talk about Duppy know who be Frighten.
Oh, you want to say one more time, Duppy know who?
Which is a Caribbean proverb. So I had the honour to see the installation, which left me with a few different thoughts and feelings. And I can see you said to me before you go in, you know, somebody came out and they were crying, and I was like, what the hell am I going to expect here? I didn't know what to expect. I really didn't. And I can understand why they did. And I think I said to you, it's very confronting. And it will show up differently in different people, I think. This is just my take on it. Depending on what you're going through and what you're experiencing in life. So for me, yes, it was confronting. For me, let me not talk about it too much.
No, I kind of want to hear this though. Like, I kind of want to selfishly hear this. It's like, you know, you're giving me an insight into your experience. I've seen it so many times that I kind of can't have that anymore.
Right. So for me, it was like you was talking from the point of view of ego. It touched on themes of perfectionism. There was a line in it, and sorry if I don't say it verbatim, but it was something about if you're alive and you're mourning, like if you're mourning somebody who's still alive, what's to say that they're not mourning you and you're alive, you know? That stuck out for me. So it's just all these personal bits of myself I was like, okay, speaking too loud. Like,
That was the point.
yeah, exactly. And that's what I gained from it. So let's kind of talk about the installation. So people who haven't had the fortune to experience it, let's talk about the proverb, what that means, and then let's go further into the installation.
So the proverb for me is one which I think a lot of Caribbean households shout at kids, Duppy know who for Frighten, but I never heard the full sentence, which is Duppy know who for Frighten and who to say goodnight. I'm like, growing up, if I had the full spectrum of that sentence, it would have made so much sense in regards to my confidence. Duppy know who for Frighten made me feel like there are just people who are always going to be scared of things in life. They're always going to be the victim of someone else's strength or how would I say oppression, right? But to know that Duppies are also scared of people as well made me think, all right, cool, you can be a certain disposition that stops you from having to fear about consequences or the assault of someone else. I'm like, cool, that's who I want to be. I want to be the person that Duppies know who leave this guy, like, just tell him good night, he's good. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't want to mess around with him. The other guys, you can go have some fun and play with these guys, but this guy over here, leave him alone. I think we kind of live our lives sometimes adopting this non-idealistic view of ourselves. And most of the time it's in fear of something. Like it's in fear of scarcity. It's in fear of, the sense of inadequacy. Even when you achieve something, it's like, it's not enough. I don't want to have any of those fears. They contribute to art, which is great, but they also provide a regression of my evolution. And I'm like, I just got to challenge that. So yeah, that was the original foundation, coupled with, I'm rambling right now, but
No.
Coupled with a quote that I found on Tumblr circa 2015 or 2014. And it said, the definition of hell is when you're on your deathbed and you're visited by the person you were meant to become. Ooh. And I could see this person, I still see this person in my eyes. And I was just so upset how far away he was from me. Like, in everything. Like, I'm just like, you're that far away? It's like thinking you can play basketball and dunk on LeBron James. I'm like, no, you can't. You got to really get to that level of athleticism and mental prowess. And I was just very upset with myself. I'm like, all this work you've done, you still ain't there yet. I'm like, cool. What can I write that will be a pathway that will get me to that person a lot quicker? Because I don't want to be on my deathbed and see that person that I should have become.
Yeah, it's that thing of regret, isn't it? That theme. You said something just a minute ago, and it made me think of this misconception that you have to be a tortured artist to create good work. So what would you say in kind of to combat that?
Part of me agrees. I sometimes ask myself, like, what is the role of the poet? And knowing that there are songs that I listen to that made me think it's okay to feel this way. I think it's paramount that we have poets who know the truth about human existence, because we talk about things in ways which songs can't. Most of the time you want to feel good even in a sad space. Poets who make you understand the sad space isn't where you're supposed to feel good in. It's like it's mini revolutions that become a cannonball into something else. So it's almost allowing yourself to audit the truest, scariest parts of you and put it onto paper and share it with someone else so they can now do the work,
I love that. There is a theme of people pleasing, which we touched on, and that was kind of like my experience when I was watching it, and perfectionism, and emotional excavation. So how did those forces shape this work?
Woo! We're going in today, innit? We're going in today. I feel like, so this is the first real, I guess, dissection of my work to this degree where I've now experienced it, being experienced by other people. I think the people-pleasing aspect has really triggered a lot of us. It's this thing where we're conditioned, if you do nice to other people, they'll do nice onto you. Life doesn't work like that. It's like, I could give you £50 right now. It doesn't mean you're obligated or obliged to give me £50 a month from now. It's just, you did a good act. Thank you. And I think I had this real gripe. I was angry at the quote unquote unfairness of that rule that I was taught. Be nice to others and they'll be nice to you. I think people pleasers can be a great component to society, but most of the time we're just used and abused and accepted as the person who's going to get hurt in this transaction because they're doing a nice thing, So for me, how can I create like a poetic political act in this piece? I'm going to really shake up the people pleasers and hopefully not tell them to stop who they are, but think about who you're being that for, So yeah, that was the core. And I'm a recovering people pleaser. If we're really going to go there, I used to love putting smiles on people's faces. I used to love like creating like crazy romantic gestures that would then have a result that made me question who I am and how I do things. And just as a man, I guess you ask yourself, even just on a human level, like just removing that from aside, it's like, you want to do good because you like seeing people happy. But why about if it doesn't make you happy anymore? And that bothered me. Like it really, really bothered me. And then, my friends are telling me, continue to be this good person because we really love it. And I'm like, are you saying that because you're benefiting as well? Because I'm telling you right now that I don't like this feeling.
Right.
And you're encouraging me to do something which I'm inherently saying it's not for me anymore. I'm done. So that whole tug of war and friction became an expedition into how can I just shift myself, man. Like I was really, really fed up. And after doing, I guess, 8 years worth of work on myself to then learn how to love myself, I was like, I got to learn how to love myself, not through the lens of being validated through someone else's smile. Like, so yeah, that was it. I did a lot of self-work to create this piece, man. And people pleasing definitely got hung up and dry.
Essentially, it's putting boundaries down. What do the boundaries look like for you?
Can you give me some context?
So, you're saying people pleasing. If you felt like I'm trying to get something out of you that would bring that element of people pleasing and you're uncomfortable with that, how does that boundary look like for you?
Do you know when you're bullied, you become so aware of how people are making you feel,
right,
that you inherently become aware of how you're now making people feel because of what you may say, what you may not say, the tone of what you're saying I became so aware of it. I think it almost became like a gift and a curse because now I'm so conscious about what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. And I want to make sure that you don't leave this conversation feeling bad, depressed, borderline anxious about anything that may have occurred. But that means you don't get to be your full true self. And I think for me, there was this dynamic that I had with rage and I guess, making sure that everyone's all right. It stops you from actually expressing your dissatisfaction or disappointment because now they're going to feel bad. Most people don't know how to handle that kind of disappointment. So I almost people please to stop them from feeling that way. But then it meant that I would always stay in this space of feeling like no one's actually caring about how I feel. They're just caring about how they cope with their own personal micromanagement, but not about the bigger picture, which is us. We had an altercation. We had something that went wrong. But now the only one who's fixed is you. Because now I have to go and figure out how to fix myself. So
yeah, that feeling of I don't know if you would call it energy vampires. I think maybe it's just like you said.
People are scared to like confront themselves.
Right.
Like inherently, most people don't want to do therapy because they say, oh, they're not going to understand me. No, they're going to really understand who you are.
Oh, yes.
You're just not going to like who you see. It's like most people don't want to take accountability for who they've become, for the decisions that have now constructed their character and have made them feel like a bad person. It's okay to be a bad person at times if you're doing the work to rectify it. People don't want to feel like they have work to do.
And it's in the work. The most interesting parts of yourself is in the work. And I'm such a huge advocate for therapy as well. And, especially with kind of like pushing that with the Black community and taking down kind of the barriers and the fear around it. It has been, I don't want to sound too dramatic, but it has been transformative for me, as it should be. And there's always more work to do. But like I said, I find all the interesting bits and all the work and all the hard bits to do. So, yeah, anybody who's thinking about it,
do it. Like it helps you in business, relationships, family, money, helps you everywhere. Just knowing yourself, not the parts that you're happy to know, like the parts that you're actually uncomfortable with.
No, 100% agree with that. So the main film in the exhibition is titled Sentient Brutalism.
Yeah.
So what inspired it and how did you prepare emotionally and technically for this kind of performance?
Woo! We just pop. You're on fire today, You're on fire today. All right, I'm going to save how I prepared for it as a second part to this answer. Sentient brutalism came from a fascination I have with brutalist architecture. And the majority of the time when you speak to people, they have a dissatisfaction or they just think it's horrible. Honestly.
just not to cut you off, but when I think of brutalism,
You about to be one of them people too right now.
No. I think immediately I think of Trellick Towers.
Which I love.
Right. So I grew up in West London.
Okay.
I'm still from West London, and I've seen that in the skyline since I was born, right?
So how do you feel when you see that building?
I used to think it was so ugly, but now I understand the history behind it. It's like a grade 2 listed building now. And I'm like, if that wasn't there, that's no longer Ladbroke Grove. That's no longer,
Thank you.
do you know, West London.
And it's also like, what does it emotionally stand for you? Like when you're in Carnival and you see that, it's an anchor.
Yes.
It's almost a point of safety. It's a North Star for a lot of things, right? And I look at brutalist architecture as an emotional compass. It's navigating, and you can be bold, you can be avant-garde, you can be on the edge and still be okay. When your environment is very homogenized, you can still stand strong in this identity, because we are seeing so many buildings now being knocked down to be replaced with contemporary ones. But to see these quote-unquote relics of the past exist and to be so beautifully arrogant, I'm like, that's who we should be. For me, it's a mirror of my psyche. Like, I want to be this.
Yeah.
So when I look at brutalism, I'm thinking, all right, cool, how do I embody this in a personality? And that's the personality that you saw in Sentient Brutalism.
Okay, so if I was to say to you, what personality does Trellick Towers embody for you? Could you put a personality to it, or?
I've got this grandfather clock persona, reggae dancehall, Rasta man, just like skanking his leg and doesn't care about the world around him.
Yeah.
Because you have to have that sense of, everything's just like this to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, I'm here now. And it feels like that. This overarching, overbearing, feels like surveillance as well. Like you're being looked after in some weird way. Like there's this towering thing that is making sure that you know that I'm here so that you're okay. And I'm like, yeah, it just gives me like grandfather clock vibes, which is an heirloom, I guess, of like older times. And, if anyone still has those people in their life, man, they're the things that anchor you.
Yeah.
They ground you and they remind you that you came from someone,
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of looking at it. I'm now actually going to, buildings that have meant something to me, I'm now going to start giving them personalities.
I got a podcast idea, so we might have to talk.
Hey.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of switch gear again. I know we are jumping around, so just bear with me. You've talked about fear as both a shelter and a prison. So what fears did you personally confront through this work? I know we've touched on kind of, you spoke about how bullying kind of impacted work and so and such, but
the fear that I'm not enough. And I think I've got so many friends who will probably like look at this part and be like, Lion's crazy. What is he talking about? Like, you've done this, bro. You went here, you've done this person works with you, you've done like all the things which people might consider accolades and proof of concept. I'm still questioning myself because like I know I'm supposed to be great. And that may not sound quite humble, but it's like I know, I feel it, I believe it, I breathe it. I'm supposed to be great. Like uncomfortably, you did that. People might feel that way about me already, but I'm like, I'm just scratching it right now. I'm in an environment which doesn't fully understand how great I am. So looking at Sentient Brutalism, thinking, all right, cool, Lion, how do you become this? What are you going to have to break down in order to rebuild this vision of yourself, who sees greatness in every single thing that he touches? And I'm like, bro, you gotta, again, it sounds really morbid, like you just have to kill that version of yourself because that's going to keep on persisting to stay alive. I think the first line I said in the film was, finally, you figured it out, huh? It's like, I'm just waiting for that aha moment. Like, I know I have the power to do it, but I'm just not there yet, And until I feel like I am enough, until I don't have that query about, am I attaining this level of excellence that I believe I'm supposed to be, I'm going to keep on beating myself up. And it's just not a healthy space to be in.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a lot. Again, we spoke about this, that it's the pressure, of living up to this standard.
But we want people to be ambitious, right?
We do want people to be ambitious. But I think, again, you got to balance the two things, right?
But what is balance to ambition?
I think there's that mental space of burnout, because that's a real thing.
I might see some controversial things right now. I think burnout was healthy.
Okay.
I think burnout was healthy. You know where your limit is now. There's so many of us who don't know where our limit is, or we have preconceived limits, I can only do 10 press-ups, so I'm not going to push myself a bit too much. You could probably do 50 under the right circumstance, with the right coach or the right ingredients in your system, like there could be so many things that change what you think your limits are. And when I've burnt out, I was like, cool, that's my line now. How do I push a bit further? I did Tough Mudder the other day, like 2 weeks ago, a week before my installation. And there's a long story that I can tell you, but I was lying on my back. I can't swim, by the way, yeah. In ice cold water with like a fence above the water. You have to crawl under this. I can't breathe because I can't swim. I can't see because the water's on my eyes. And I really understood when people say you have to dig into that part of your mind, when it's like do or die, because I literally thought I was going to die. I tapped into something that I've never been before. And I don't want to be like, oh, beast mode, you know. It's just like, it was the greatness. It was like, oh, you finally found me. You had to throw yourself into such an environment where you nearly saw death, but you finally realize none of this stuff matters, that you can really dig to that point. And now that I've existed in that space, like the roar that I came out with when I came, oh my days, it was crazy. And my boy was staring at me and I was like it was nuts, but I know how that feels. So when you speak about balance to me, I'm like, are we saying that never having met that limit yet? Because then what is balance? Balance is a precautionary tale to stop you from getting to that point. Know where your end is. It's like, let's say you're in a marriage and it's getting a bit tense. Know where your limit is. Let's not, we're shouting a bit too much. No, let's have it out and bring ourselves back. Now we know this is the line, babes. Let's not go to that point. Or we're going to keep on thinking like, I'm not going to do this because you're...
Eggshells, yeah. And not bringing full self.
Yeah, you're bringing me out my demeanor right now. But yeah, like for real,
Yeah.
I don't want to have that. I don't want to be surrounded by people who have that. People, my guys know me in it. Like, if you start talking to me like, you need to chill, you need to slow down, you need to be this, I'm like, no, you're just gone in it. You're going to wonder why you don't hear from me as much.
Yeah. No, that's good. You want to surround yourself with people who are going to facilitate your goal and greatness, which I understand that.
And there is a part where you can be unhealthy.
Right.
Right?
But that's what I wanted to... What does that look like, the unhealthy version of that?
It's your attitude towards it.
Right.
It's like, I've had a few breakdowns, I think like 2, right? And the quote that I came up with was actually in the installation, and it said, what if the breakdown is the breakthrough?
I love that.
It's just a mind flip.
Yeah.
It's not that everything is going bad now. It's like, oh, I've broken through a new boundary. I never thought I had this before. Now I know. So I know myself so much better now, because I pushed myself to that part. It's like you're in a relationship with someone and you feel like they're not really, like they're doing their work, but they're not really pushing themselves. There's the most unattractive quality you can see in someone. They're not prepared to show you who they are to themselves. No, not me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So talking about architecture of belief systems and identity, how do belief systems, whether kind of cultural, inherited or societal, shape the spaces we live in and people we become?
Have you ever gone to another country and felt like this was the place for you?
100%. I always feel like maybe I lived a past life here. I'm so comfortable.
Why does it feel different? What place are we talking about right now?
Oh, Mexico and Italy and Ghana. Outside. Okay, so let me...
Okay, slow it down. Let's do one. You know what I mean? You're in a holiday mode already. I'm in Mexico, I'm in Ghana. Like,
okay, so outside of St. Lucia and Ghana, which is... St. Lucia was my first home from home.
Okay.
And obviously Ghana because that's where my grandfather came from, and we won't digress into that story. Outside of those 2 places, it was Mexico and Italy. Strangely, I don't know why. Well, I do know why.
I know you know why. Yeah. So why? Give me one of them. Let's go for Mexico.
Mexico, there was just this spiritual energy that existed there, along with the warmth of the people, along with the vibrancy and the food, and just the collective energy of Mexico. And I was like, yeah, I love this. This is a bit of me.
Did you walk down the streets differently?
I mean, I always do when I'm on holiday. So it's always a little bit more, relaxed, a little bit more free.
Let's not resist the questioning. So you walk down the streets differently, right?
Yeah.
Did you breathe differently?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think contribute to that?
I think it was just, I don't know, a safety in the space, a sense of like...
So
I don't know.
One of my theory lectures, David Knight, he said to me, we said to the class at this time, he was like, do you know what culture is? And everyone kept on saying, oh, statues, oh, heritage. And it's like, culture is a group of people who believe and act in the same way. That's it. So an ecosystem that you've experienced is the impact of how our social beliefs construct our worlds, right? So when you have your girls group or the mandem group, that's a culture. It's a safe ecosystem that is away from the world's views. If you allow people to build a space, you'll have your Mexico, you'll have your Italy, because it's not a homogenized sense of belief systems. That's why our holidays are like trips outside of our minds.
Yes.
So that's my answer.
Yes.
Thank you for participating in, you know what I mean? There is a power in collective thought.
Yeah.
Right? And when you travel to Japan, the States, Mexico, Italy, you are seeing the consequences and benefits of collective thought.
Yeah.
Everyone may not agree, but if the majority does, they become it. It's hard to be challenged when you believe something, man. I think like Tony Robbins spoke about how an idea is like a table with one leg. He said a belief is a table with two legs. A conviction is one with four. And he's like, when you have a conviction, that's when people are going to fight you for challenging them because they're not prepared to be changed. It's their conviction. But a belief, it's like, okay, we can talk about it. You ask me a couple questions. An idea, you say a better one. All right, cool, the idea is dead now. But convictions is when people go to war with you.
We can talk about that in religion, but we won't. Let's not go down.
This is a business, creative,
topic.
You have to all of this.
Okay, so just to kind of round it out a little bit, and kind of looking ahead. So what do you hope people will walk away with after experiencing your work?
So in architecture, there's a phrase called transitional spaces, which is you enter it one way and you leave another. That's all I want. Ultimately, like, I want you to step into it and leave thinking, who am I now? That's it. There are so many artistic things I can say, but I want you to be changed in this way, and I want the lighting and the grading. I could do all of that. I just want you to step into this space and leave a different person. That's it.
Simple. Very
That's
simple.
it.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's hard to get there because you're going to want to revert because you're so used to being the thing that you've been all your life.
Go back to the comfort zone.
Yeah. Which ironically isn't comfortable.
No, it's not. If you sit in it too long, no. What part of your artistic journey feels unfinished or just beginning?
My career.
Yeah.
my career. When I tell you, I feel like living in a different space, I would have been so much further than I am right now. But there are so many obstacles, I think, that happen here that I've had to. It's taken me a while to figure out. You know, like I have these conversations with a lot of my creative friends. And yeah, you're kind of fighting your environment more than you're fighting your career trajectory most of the time. It's like, I've had to convince so many people that it made sense to do this. This is valuable. Look at what it can do. And it's only after I've pushed and pushed and pushed and banged and screamed about it. Not literally screamed, but like, you know, conveyed passionately why this is important. At the end, they were like, you're right. But it took so long. And there'll be other places that I'd say these ideas. They'll be like, let's do it next month. And I'm like, so yeah, my career right now. And I'm figuring out ways of how to catalyze myself to get to that place a lot quicker.
Finally, so here at the Black Circle, kind of we're all about building a legacy of brilliance. If you could place one truth, one lesson, or one poetic blueprint into that circle for the next generation to find, what would it be?
Can it be a recommendation?
Absolutely.
Watch James Baldwin's The Artist's Struggle for Integrity. It's a 28-minute voice recording of a speech he gave, and it is my... Don't want to be blasphemous. It is my olive branch to myself whenever I'm struggling to go down this monetary route or this creative route or whatever route it is. Because again, in business, you're always figuring out what do you do to survive. This thing just makes me feel so whole, man. And he has a way of just wherever it is your ego or ambition or lack of balance is taking you to, he just gives you that feeling of walking into a sea and just letting go. So yeah, James Baldwin's The Artist's Struggle for Integrity.
Okay, good recommendation. Okay, and very quickly, because I know we're on a little bit of a clock, values. If you could say a value for your professional life and one for your personal life, what would they be?
Metacognitive empathy.
Okay.
And I think when you become aware of your thoughts, you become aware of how sensitive and soft you should be to your mind. So yeah.
And last one, personal.
I feel like it serves that too, but I would say now I'm contradicting what I said to you, where you're balance. Balance. Yeah. Because I feel like this could be balanced too.
Right.
You know, the scale doesn't have to be balanced here. It could also balance in that way. So yeah.
Amazing.
A redefinition of balance.
Well, LionHeart, thank you so much. If people want to follow your journey, where can they find you?
Find me at LionHeartfelt on all social media accounts. Yeah, you get me. Say hi.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Can I say thank you for having me as well? Like, this has been super fun, man. Honestly, you got deep and dark as well at certain points, but like...
Yeah, but you was like, do you mind? I was like, no, let's do it. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of... get there. And guys, thank you once more for joining in. And if you enjoyed this episode, like, follow, share, subscribe. Thank you.